viewers, and welcome to another edition of the Hindu's Perspective, hosted by Swaha, under the guidance of members of the Hara Mandal of Swaha. So before we begin the program, as usual, we join in opening prayer. We clasp our hands, close our eyes, wherever we may be, as we focus upon Vigneshwar, the remove of all obstacles, as we're about to proceed with this evening's program. So focus in your mind, Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Hari Om Tat Sat Om Sri Vigneshwaraya Namaha. Om Ekadantaya Vidmahe Vakratundaya Dhimahi Tanu Danti Prachodayat. Om Asato Ma Sat Gamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Bole Sri Gajanan Swami Ki Jai. Bole Sri Swaha Mata Ki Jai. So I pass over to member of the Hara Mandal, Gyandeo Pastat.
Sitaram, welcome again to the program. We have with us today Umadutt Maharaj, who is not the secretary of the Hara Mandal, by Ishwar Maharaj, who is also principal of S1E College. When Umadutt already said the prayer, and I invite Ishwar to say a few words, and then the prayer, and then I'll go to the topic we're discussing today. So I pass on upon Ishwar. We need more prayer advertisers. So I pass on upon Ishwar to say a prayer also. We need plenty of prayer in this country. By Ishwarji.
Sitaram, everyone, and thank you, Panaji. So what I will do as we begin, also, of course, we have a special program that we would have started last week with Umadutt ji, who of course has experience with financial management and apart from spiritual matters also. And we will be continuing with our topic, which of course deals with finances and saving and so much more, where it concerns our material wealth as such. And in particular, of course, we were discussing wealth acquisition and management in terms of the 4 stages of life. And we had discussed the brahmachari and grihast stages. And we will be moving on, apart from other things that we will discuss, how this impacts on us as we move into the other 2 stages of life. But as Panaji has asked also, we join in prayer again. But in particular, I want to worship Sri Krishna Bhagwan. And the reason is, in beginning, as we commence today, last week we would have mentioned, within Swaha, we lost one who was close to our temples in Swaha, in particular, Shakti Mandali. And I think the nation would also be affected by the loss of a Pandit who was well known and well loved by all, and indeed a relative, if I could say so, of Gyandeo ji, Umadutt, and many of our Pandits of Swaha. So he, of course, was the very well-known, illustrious senior Pandit of the Sanatana Dharma Mahasabha, Pandit Ramdutt Vyas. So on behalf of Swaha, as the Secretary of the Mandal, we do extend sincere condolences to the Vyas family on the loss of such a stalwart and supporter of Sanatana Dharma. Many of our pundits would have already expressed, their condolences to the family. And for many of you who may know, some may not know, he is actually the younger brother of the mother, or the founding mother then of Swaha, Mataji Chandrauti Prasad. So indeed, once again, we extend condolences to the family as we join together in a prayer to Sri Krishna Bhagwan in our minds. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Chananda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Krishna Krishna Mahayogin Bhakta Nama Bhayankara Govinda Paramananda Sarvameva Shamanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Boli Shri Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. I hand over back to Umadutt ji.
Well, Gyandeo will do opening remarks, etc., and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Panaji. Let me thank Ishwar Maharaj, Secretary of the Dhamma Mandal Swaha, for his very thoughtful act of offering prayer on behalf of the departed deceased, who is my uncle, who was my uncle. I don't want to die, he's still your uncle. But we say deceased, Swargiya. And as a matter of fact, he is also our God brother. In fact, that my father was his guru. So that indeed there's a loss to society. I can remember, apart from Pant Hardeo, after him we had Pant Rambam who came up and was commanding the listenership of the Hindu community. He really had a tremendous following. And I was there in the funeral. I was a bit disappointed because it tells us, Krishna Bhagavan said in the Gita, when you're alive and what you could do, people around you. When you die, then it's a different story. We expected much more to be done for him as a man who had done so much for Sanatana Dharma. But matter of fact, they have a complex in Charleville named Vyas Complex, which he initiated. So indeed, all of us will miss him. But life is like that. Everybody has to live their life. When time comes, they have to say, Bidai, I'm going. Ek din hame bhi jana hai. So as we begin this evening, I'll continue what we talked about last week when Umadutt introduced the first stage of life. And the state of life we are talking about now is the second stage, which is Grihast Ashram. That is householder stage. And this is where accumulation of wealth is recommended. When you're a student, you accumulate knowledge, you learn. But when you go to Grihast Ashram, you have your duty and responsibility is to accumulate wealth. So as usual, whatever we say, we take the ground in from the Gita. I'll read from chapter 16 what Krishna Bhagavan says about wealth and what is said about in Gita about wealth and some warnings. Krishna Bhagavan in the Gita, he says, some people like this. He says, Main bara dhani hu. I'm great, I'm wealthy, I'm rich. I have a large family. I'll sacrifice. I'll do yagya, all for ostentation and show. He is intoxicated by wealth. Many are intoxicated by wealth. And those, he said, those self-conceited, haughty men perform sacrifices for ostentation without following sacred rituals. There are many examples I can quote, but I wouldn't do it. Many, when they get rich, well then, the pandit becomes the fustooge. When you become rich, a yag becomes like a party. Then you have a yag, you jump up and you gallery. Many times you go to a yag here, and the Baba is waiting. The puja has been completed, and the Sudha can't reach yet. Because he had come outside with jewelry around his neck, big chain, big ring, all kind of sort of things, and walk out when everybody reached. And then I had to go like that right to the crowd before he reached the puja stuff. So there are many people, we know it, we see it. So Krishna Bhagavan is warning, wealth is a good servant, but a bad master. Don't let wealth, what you're talking about, creation of wealth, especially in Grihast Ashram, don't let wealth rule us. Whereas a warning. And Krishna Bhagavan is saying in Gita in chapter 16, these people who get wealth, what happens? Their ego takes over. I'm wealthy. You have a little conflict, yes, march them up, you go in court and you go pay. Those kinds of attitudes, we see it so often. So Krishna Bhagavan in chapter 16 is warning us, accumulate wealth, as we were speaking about, we spoke about last week. There are many ways to accumulate wealth, we talked about it just now. But he said when you accumulate wealth, don't let the wealth go to your head. And I want to tie in that with what's going on in the country right now. I read in the newspaper where in Bharataria, a businessman shot two individuals who were trying to break his home because he had a business. So the situation of security for what you have accumulated. Many of us work hard. And what happens? When we work hard, we become targets to the criminals. And what has to be done? The government, well, it is sad to say, the Minister of National Security, I wouldn't mention his name. I wouldn't give him that privilege. But whether he's talking, I saw in the news, he is talking. The tent is falling down and he's still talking. It's amazing, you know. He's for himself. The tent falling down all along and people get on walking, but he's still talking. Then I go and tell him, stop talking. The tent is falling down. So maybe his, as he said, his emphasis is not on the security for people. So the tent fall on the head, I done business. It's very amazing what goes on in this country. So we are saying, when you accumulate wealth, how do you take care of it? And this is one of the things, again, which will a subset of the discussion. The businessman had a gun, a licensed gun. How many people can really protect themselves? That was a big issue with the last situation. That why people can't get guns. Why? Guns are too dangerous, but criminals have guns. But a man who applied for a gun, it have big investigation about who get gun, who didn't get gun, and people who have guns is to protect their property themselves. So this topic Krishna Bhagavan is saying of accumulate wealth, as Hindus you must do it. But then when we take the next stage, how do we protect our wealth? What do we do? And not we alone, the whole society needs to act upon this. So I'll pass on to Pan Umadutt. We'll speak a bit again about how we are committed. Last week we spoke about things like welcome nations working hard, getting a job, Vilas Ashram, then having things like your pension, having things like life insurance, having savings, having investments, all these things. We do it, they accumulate wealth. And then what happens? Pass on to Umadutt to talk a bit more about how we accumulate wealth, in what ways. And we're talking about static wealth, not going and killing people and taking money. Go and work hard. So Pan Umadutt, how do you continue accumulating wealth according to Sanatana Dharma? Any Grihastha Ashram? Panditji.
Thank you, Pandit. And well, as we continue with our discussion, and this is why last week when we mentioned that wealth, as you made a very, very important point of legitimate static wealth, that when you accumulate wealth, as a matter of fact, first time I'm hearing that verse on the Bhagavad Gita, so I think that's a very revealing verse where Krishna Bhagavan speaks about the way in which wealth should be distributed, the attitude towards
chapter
wealth.
16, chapter 16, verse 15 and 16. Chapter
Good.
16,
So
verse
devotees could go and look
15
at
and
it and
16.
see, about how Krishna Bhagavan himself, because most of the time when we speak of wealth, we think about Lakshmi Ma. And in this instance here, Bhagavad Gita is telling us the words of Krishna Bhagavan. As we all know, the Bhagavad Gita is the direct words from the lips of Krishna Bhagavan. So it's not written by any individual. And that in itself is a justification. So when we say that wealth is to be accumulated and to be distributed, this verse falls exactly into what we mentioned last week. That when we distribute, when we accumulate our wealth, as we begin this evening, the distribution or the using of the wealth is what is important in a few ways. One, for legitimate sensuous pleasures, right? As mentioned, you take your family for vacation, etc. Secondly, for a rainy day, put aside for savings, for sickness, etc. And third, in charity. Now, the thing about it, how I look at it, and from our training, etc., is that, as Gyandeo mentioned, that sometimes you made a very important point last week also. Sometimes when we think, we hear the words life insurance, we hear the word pension, we hear investment, the first thing on your mind is scam, rip-off, and thief. But as you mentioned, long are gone are those days where we think like that. Because right now as it is, at no extra cost, I would say, we have many, many ways in which, especially, and most of the time when we're in Grihastha Ashram, we hardly think of ourselves. Most of the time, well, I would say about 85% of the time, close to 90% of the time, we think about our children. Because what you do in Grihastha Ashram, you work, you accumulate, you maintain your family, you see about your expenses, whatever. And definitely in that whole mix is putting aside for the children, for future, for education. And this is where, as Gyandeo mentioned last week, that there are many, many different options that we have. And we're not going into any details as such, but as he mentioned, like pension plans, like educational investments. We have many high-yielding saving accounts. And it's important for us to know sometimes, because we speak to plenty of people, and sometimes they say, Baba, well, I can't put away $1,000 on a child a month. That's difficult for me. And this is where the whole concept comes in, that they say, Simiti, jail, but hit alawa. Drop by drop, bucket is full. So a little bit, as a piece of advice, and I myself do the same thing. Whatever you could afford, a little bit. But the point about it is that within this time of Grihastha Ashram, where you are working, you are accumulating, there are many, many different ways. As I mentioned, open up, some high-yielding saving account, maybe an endowment, maybe some health plan or some life insurance plan where you see most of the amount goes towards savings. So when you see time do come, because at the end of the day, as it is now, it's becoming harder, and most of our young children, I saw Ishwar could attest to this, and most of them, the first option were go away, leave the country, go university away. So when you look at all those things, you have to be prepared, because as it is now, even though you win an open scholarship, you have to come back and work for the government. You have to put back into the country what you have taken. So this is why it's so imperative that in this ashram that we are speaking about now, Grihastha Ashram, we as parents and those who are on the outside, it is important that at least, for lack of a better term, a few $100. Let's use that as a benchmark that you put aside for the future. And doing that, putting aside $500 or $300 for a period of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you can see the amount of, balance that we'll have at least in the account for the children for the future. Now, doing a bit of reading recently, and it has been shown that I would say about 50% of the reason why households are not run properly is because of the same reason. That in the Grihasti ashram, you have the fathers, and I would say if you look at the research, most of the ones we refer to are the males, the fathers. We see case of disappearing fathers, case of fathers who are not providing financial support to the home. When Friday evening reach, the father disappear, no food in the house, no milk for the children, no pampers. The wife alone is at home, with the child fighting up to trying to make ends meet. So this is one of the main things, many reasons why also we have a lot of, imbalance in the household. And this is where you see it is important that we have in males in particular. Now, we're not saying that they are not females who are like this, but most of it, most of the research shows that the males, the men folk, because most of the time the men are the breadwinners in the home, the mother stays home, take care of the children, run the household, etc. So this Grihasti ashram is a very, very important stage where you see we as individuals, as men in particular, and not saying it because I have 4 men or 3 men on the chat, but generally speaking, what have been research and interviews that have been done is that this stage is where you see the men in particular need to take that responsibility of.
Umadutt, let me just intervene, but Umadutt, make a very potent points. I would like to just pass on upon Ishwar, because you're making a point about wealth accumulation. We said it starts in Grihastha ashram, but the parent has to make sure that starts for the child in Brahmacharya ashram, and that's where the school comes in. Because without the school, without the proper education, they can't get a proper job. Can't get a proper job. So I pass on upon Ishwar, who's the principal of a school, and he's given his perspective on how we build wealth from the education point of view. So I pass on upon Ishwar, who is responsible for thousands of children over the years, and still responsible as a principal of a school. Pandit Ishwar.
Thank you, Panditji. So the thing is, as I would have mentioned last week also, we are in the habit of bringing our children up, trying to instill in them certain values. And one of them is, of course, an appreciation for that which they have been blessed with, whatever little it may be. In particular, one of the important activities that we would teach them to do is, to give a little bit in charity also. It helps them to value a lot more what they have. They get involved in helping others, serving others. Even when we do our religious services and so on, they will contribute a little bit in charity. And all of this, we bring it back full circle, where we explain to them that they are all interconnected, and each and every individual has a certain role to play, of course, within the community and certainly in the school. Now, last week we also mentioned the great atrocities that many children, face, in that they come from homes where they are underprivileged. So they may look at other children who have the best of everything, the best laptop, the best, shoes to come to school. They will have fancy lunches in their lunchbox, whereas these others depend on the school nutrition program. And each and every student, we always would want them to feel equal, to feel valued. And so there are various mechanisms that we utilize in school, right? Social service programs, and of course, whether, aided by the ministry, but certainly within SWAHA, and also by parent bodies and other individuals who would volunteer their time and their resources also to help students. But I can say and confirm, as Pandit Gyandeo was asking, throughout our school and all the years I've been teaching, I'm sure Pandit Gyandeo would have noticed the same. We see a big disparity, and it does affect our children. Now, at the same time, we have seen children come up through the ranks, excel. Pandit Umadutt, I think, was mentioned last week. Students who are very underprivileged, do not have access to all the resources that some do, but hard work pays off, dedication pays off, discipline pays off. So I could talk about the core values of our school: spirituality, integrity, discipline, industry, and respect. Having these inculcated in our children as they grow up, they learn to value what they have and they learn to appreciate, you know, the little bit that they have. It's called santosh or contentment. They might be contented with the little that they have, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to work hard to achieve more, right? And what we have been observing is that over the time, I think we'll return in a short while, the viewers, and we continue. We take a break at this time. Sitaram.
Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m.
Right, dear viewers, thank you for joining, and I apologize for the abrupt break that we took just a short while ago. As we continue, I was saying that, of course, our children are encouraged to work hard, to study hard, show that discipline, and to work for what they want to achieve. And it is important that, we all try to instill in them this particular value: hard work, respect for authority, discipline in all aspects of life. Because this is something that will carry through also later on, Umadutt, Gyandeo, into their attitude towards wealth and into the Grihast ashram even later on. So when we talk about wealth and earth, from the acquisition of wealth, then little children growing up, they must understand that it has to be a pursuit, yes, but in moderation. So it must not, it's much more than just wanting to acquire and earn as much as they can. I think very important is meeting the necessities of life: shelter, clothing, to have enough material possessions to lead a meaningful life. But at the same time, they must understand that the pursuit of wealth and earth, then from the brahmachari stage as they move into the grihast ashram, also has a certain amount of impact on the social order and society in general. So last week, I remember mentioning, and I want to tie in that, that in Sri Ram Chritmanas, Kak Bhushundi said, poverty is the greatest misery. Of all things, is the greatest misery. That leads a breakdown. What does poverty cause? A strain on resources, breakdown in social order in a country. So from small as children grow up, they have to understand how important wealth is, how important the acquisition of wealth is, how important, more importantly, managing that wealth that they acquire is. Whether it's a few $1,000s for the month or $100,000 for the month, what they do with it, how they manage it, is extremely important. We hand over to Pandit Gyandeo, who continue.
Thank you, Pandit Ishwar. As Pandit Ishwar mentioned, the principal of his school, education is the foundation for us to go up in life. Social mobility and wealth accumulation start from there. And I want to emphasize that wealth, as he said, must be used constructively. But Ishwar mentioned it, and Umadutt mentioned it also. What do you do with your wealth? Having accumulated the wealth. And both have mentioned part of it is given charity. I want to mention a verse from the Gita about charity, because this seems to be a very misunderstood concept of charity. What is charity? Charity doesn't mean give away money. If a beggar comes to you and is drunk and wants money to give him, I wouldn't give him. My scripture doesn't tell me that. Gita doesn't say that. You know he's a drunkard. You know he's a coke. You know he's taking drugs. Nah, what he it's your business. You're going to aid and abetting a man in doing crime. So you have to give according to Krishna Bhagavan. I'll quote directly from the Gita. I will take an example from the Ramayana also. Krishna Bhagavan said that which is given, whereas wealth, money, whatever, without good grace and in the wrong time, out of place, and to undeserving persons is said to be tamasic, that evil. So you're given to people who do not deserve charity, you will suffer the consequences. And my mind goes back to Sita Mata. It is blaring in the Ramayana. Sita Mata want to give Ravan charity. Go why? He pulled the fast on her. Bhiksha deham. He assumed the role of a Brahman and said, you must give charity. And Sita Mata fall to that, which many people have fallen to today. You want to give charity blindly. You do not know what people are going to do with money. You do not know who they are, where they're coming from. If you do that, and they do what we call criminal activity with that money, you suffer the consequences also. It's called aiding and abetting. So part of your accumulation of wealth is where you have to give it properly, otherwise you're wasting your money and committing sin. And when we talk about this, and talk about education and wealth, I want to mention that we all are talking and practicing. And I'll just mention for Umadutt, but Ishwar, they are looking after their children. They are making sure they're educated and accumulating wealth for their benefit. So that what we are accumulating wealth for, we save part, and savings is important, ask any economist. Without savings, the country can't go anywhere. This is why we have the Heritage and Civilization Fund. The country saves for a rainy day. Are we saving for a rainy day? We have to save when that time comes. So that we have to save. Saving is important. Charity is important, but it's going to be done according to dharma. So I'll pass on to Umadutt. I said, Umadutt and Ishwar, they are all doing the same thing. We are not just talking here, we are practicing. We are doing what we are saying. We are educating our children, we are saving, and we are guiding people how to use that gift. When you use wealth in a dharmic way, then it becomes more. When you use wealth in an adharmic way, in an evil way, then it lessens and you get on your head. So I pass on Umadutt, who is doing a magnificent job. He has his two sons, but he sure had his children, and they're all doing the very same thing. I said, this program is not a talk show, This program is what Hindu perspective, what we as Hindus are doing, and encouraging others to do. We want to share the experience that others do the same way. But Umadutt.
Thank you, Pandit. And as you mentioned that, and I cannot quote exactly where, but you will be better off than me. But the Bhagavad Gita says that Sat is wealth, is Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic.
Yes.
Which natures of wealth. And you rightly mentioned Tamasic wealth. As you said, I believe in exactly what you say there. You see a drunkard in the road, you see a cookman in the road, he beg you might say, well, somebody who need help, but what you're actually doing is giving him money to go buy more rum and more cook. So that wealth becomes tamasic. Rajasic wealth. And as you mentioned in that, when you open with those verses of Bhagavad Gita, God put in a position to accumulate. But what you do? You feel better than everybody. You want to buy out everything. Pay your way out of every situation. And we have many examples of that, Rajasic. But what Bhagavad Gita tells us is that Sattvic wealth is the most recommended wealth, as we say. And as you mentioned, the word barakat remains. That when you use wealth, and also Pandit mentioned, sometimes we say use your wealth, and the first thing a Hindu may say, okay, you're going to put arti, you put by the murti. That is part of it. But using your wealth, as Pandit mentioned, is training the children, giving them their money, training them to save, training them to be thrifty, training them to understand that, you have wealth today, it could be lost tomorrow. So what you need to do is find ways of saving. Nothing wrong as young children in our days to show you like everything you see you want to buy. You know what I mean? And until as you get older and you become, be influenced by more of the seniors, etc., you understand that savings are important. But as Pandit mentioned, you must give them that opportunity. And I telling you up front, sometimes my own children, how I treat them, you put certain stipulations. Not everything you want you could get. You do not do good in school, you cannot get what you want, right? I'm giving you money to save, but I will manage it for you. And in this sort of way too, you treat them, as you mentioned, Pandishwar, the responsibility. Because this is part of wealth accumulation. As a parent, obviously you're going to be the main breadwinner of the family, right? Be mother or father. But as I was mentioning, part of that now is to start to train the younger ones because they will be the future generation. And this is, from my opinion, and maybe I could be right or wrong, but this is what we refer to as Sattvic wealth. well, that is of the true nature, what is really supposed to be, to develop yourself, your family, and obviously in a sattvic way. You give charity where it's needed. For example, we have the children home, you have your mandirs, you have your temples. You know, as I know many temples, what they will do, individuals will maybe want someone give a $50 or give something to children's home or buy something that is in a family that is really need, etc. So in this way now, when you use your wealth in such a way, because as I say, accumulation and everything, you know, Gyandeo mentioned, you can accumulate and lose everything next day. If you see your wealth is rajasic or tamasic, because it doesn't remain. I know as the Ola once say, you have 25 cents, you can live on that. You could have $100,000 and it is not done used in the proper way, you lose everything. So this is a very, very important point in my opinion, that as individuals, not only as Hindus, but as individuals generally, as people going through the ropes of life, accumulation, yes, we must do that, find ways of doing it. But in the way in which we disburse our wealth is important. We should avoid this rajasic. We should avoid tamasic and look at it from a sattvic point of view. Because when you use wealth in such a way, as you say, lack of a better term, what you are accustomed in, barakat is there. It remains, it lasts, it spreads. So I don't know, Pastor the Pandit, if you have.
Yes, thank you, Pandit. And I just want to add a little bit to that. So as we're talking about the way in which we use our wealth or should use our wealth as followers of Sanatan Dharma, as Hindus, and for those in the Grihastha Ashram in particular, we all know that we have 5 daily duties and obligations. We say the Panch Mahayagya, which of course is tied to Nitya Karmas then. Those obligatory actions that we need to do on a daily basis. So the daily sacrifices. So we talk about our Dev Yagya, Rishi Yagya, Bhut Yagya, Manusha Yagya, Pitri Yagya. So part of this use of our wealth to accomplish these things is extremely important. We should be doing Dev Yagya, doing your puja, doing your worship. Even you may not always invite Panditji to come every day or every week or month to your home. That may not be possible. But you purchase, the ingredients to do your own little puja and havan on a regular basis. That's important. And then you give, yes, we spoke about Dan, the importance of Dan. Satyam, Saucham, Daya, Dan. This is Dan, charity. Bhagavad Mahapuran says of the 4 of them, Dan, people are sustained and maintained this existence. They are able to survive through the giving of Dan. So it's propping up Sanatan Dharma and Hinduism, in particular in the age of Kali Yuga. But we give a little bit of what we have. We use our wealth to do our puja, to do our worship, to serve others in the community, even to do our Pitri Yagya, not just for Pitri Paksh, but at other times to give. What about protecting the environment? All of these things are extremely important. So use your wealth wisely. Yes, I'm saying in moderation. You save a little bit. You want your family to be comfortable. You want them to enjoy the luxuries and comforts that perhaps you, when you were young, may have been denied. Many people look at it this way. So you want to give children everything, but you give them, yes, but there must be a certain cutoff point. And remember your duties and obligations, these 5 daily duties and obligations, which we could speak about in detail at some other time. But the important thing is that we should be doing something. You should be doing some form of puja, worship, or giving some charity. Using that wealth, we talk about sattvic wealth that has been blessed and sanctioned, and used in the right way, or to use in the right way has been sanctioned by Lord Krishna as being sattvic in nature, and you will be blessed for that. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we love Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Mahapurana, and so on. But many of our ancestors, for all the generations gone, they would read, regularly. You hear about Rot and Katha, right? Katha, Satnarayan Vrat Katha. You see, each one of those kathas talks about individual who faced tremendous difficulty and the hardship they got just to get the ingredients together to make the prasad. Not so? If you remember Satnarayan Katha, just to get the ingredients, how they had to go almost, from pillar to post, asking for people to help them, until eventually, of course, they would have been able to carry on for themselves. But it stresses the importance of wealth used in the right way. And notice what the Satnarayan Katha also mentions. When you have your wealth, you don't use it for yourself, They talk about the prasadam and how you must share the prasadam and ensure that others in the community get to. So you make your prasad is not just for you. So this will be not your daily puja, your worship that you may do on certain occasions where Guruji or Pandit will come to your home. You don't make a little bit of prasad. That may be good for you if it's just you and the family, but you make extra and you share. And we have the practice to pack food and you give others too. Some will say it's wasteful. It's not wasteful, you know. You're showing your consideration. You are using your wealth to help others. So some other family doesn't have to cook for that evening or that morning. So our puja teaches us this. Our kathas teach us this, how to use our wealth. And when we use our wealth in this way, that wealth that we give, we are blessed for that. That wealth becomes even more blessed. And it continues to work for us. It continues to multiply then. And many of you would have experienced this. And this is where the statement, you know, many people quite often hear, it's better to give than to receive, because they keep giving, and you'll wonder, well, how come they are giving? But they are given that little bit that they can manage or spare to give, and they are seeing the rewards. They're getting blessing in return. So I wanted to make that point abundantly clear. Follow what our scriptures say. Just as Pani Gyandeo and Pani Umadutt is saying, use our wealth to help others. Use your wealth for puja and for religious purposes, and you'll see how it will multiply and help you in return. I hand over to Pani Gyandeo ji. Continue the discussion.
Thank you, Pandit Ishwar. I want to mention one word. It's called Anushasan. Anushasan means discipline. And whether you're a student or a Grishya ashram, discipline is important. As student, you must have discipline to study. And tiny discipline, what Krishna Bhagavan said, the triple gateway of hell. The triple gateway of hell? Desire, anger, and greed. So you have to control desire. And this is where that katha of Sitama and that deer, that golden deer, Swarna milk is called. She won the golden deer. Why? You know why? Her eyes were attracted to it. Sri Ram said, why do you want that for? So we be attracted to many things in life. We have to control it. We have to practice Anushasan, discipline. As a householder, you want to buy the biggest and the most expensive car. To do what? Drive on the road and show off for people to say, I have a nice car. Is your family taken care of? As a child, you want to buy, I saw where they have these jeans where they actually tear up the knee part and they sell it. Tear up clothes. They're selling that. You want to buy on that? So we are asking, as a parent, one person studied this thing called smoking. He says smoking is dangerous to your health. But even more dangerous, you want money spent behind it. And then want the money spent behind your health to avoid getting sick from smoking. So stop smoking, control it, Anushasan. So many areas in life you have to control. And when you control this, we will know that yes, we can use our wealth constructively as Pandit Ishwar and Pandit Umadutt has been saying. So bear that in mind, Pandit Umadutt. Bear that in mind, Anushasan. So we'll come back with that in a short while. But bear that in mind, we have to have discipline in all areas. And Krishna Bhagavan in the Gita spoke about how to be disciplined. So when you come back, we'll go on to point Umadutt. I will continue the discussion on no matter who we are, what stage in life we are in, and what we have, there must be discipline. Discipline means you have, and the eyes are what words, you know. Discipline, production, tolerance. Be disciplined. What is discipline? We'll talk about that more as we come back. I'll pass on to Umadutt. I will go into that to be disciplined to be successful in life. Now, at this point in time, we'll take a short break. You have to stay with us. We'll come back with our panel, Pandit Ishwar Madhu Maharaj, Pandit Umadutt Maharaj. We take a break at this point in time. Join us as we explore contemporary issues facing societies worldwide. Interviews and discussions featuring local and international experts. You can participate in our live call-in segments, a program of the board of SWAHA.
Join live every Tuesday evening at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and prime time at 7 p.m.
Welcome back, viewers, listeners. At this point in time, we are going to go on to our discussion. I was saying, in life, Anushasan or discipline is important in every area, no matter what field we are in, what stage in life we are in. We must have discipline. Without discipline, we can't go further. So we'll pass on to Umadutt, who will take this discussion further of discipline in Brahmacharya, first in life, and Grihas, and then you go on to life again. What is discipline? How you go about disciplining ourselves? And discipline doesn't mean beating children. Discipline doesn't mean beating them. We talk about it. I'll pass on to Umadutt.
Thank you, Pandaji. And just to wrap up this before we move on to the third stage, being a businessman, apart from a pundit, I'm around a lot of successful business people. And that doesn't mean to say I'm successful, just making a statement. But, all of them have one underlying statement, as Panagyan mentioned, discipline. As we I remember one businessman telling me, not because you have $1 million in your bank account means you're a millionaire. Some of them saying, because business has to be run in a particular way. So what it really means here is that all of these individuals who are successful, I wouldn't call the name, but one of the most successful hardwares in the country, what the owner would do in order to save, to be thrifty, what he would do at the end of the day, he'd walk around his whole compound, pick up all the nail that fell all over, all the pieces of wood that would be all over the place, whatever, and put it back in his shelf. And I asked him, so why are you doing that? You have so much. And what he said to me, one simple statement: each nail that is lost is like a cent lost, a cent less that you have. So rather than wasting, a little bit of sacrifice, as Panagyan mentioned, a little bit of Anushasan, discipline, that at the end of the day, he would walk on his compound, pick up all the nails that his employees throw all over the place, put it back in his shelf. Whatever is left all over the place that will eventually be thrown away, put it back there. And he's saying this way too, you have developed a discipline within his own self. And by that discipline, right, doing such actions, he was able to elevate himself financially, put himself in a proper position that he's able to fulfill all that is necessary in his life. So, as Panagyan mentioned, this discipline is a very, very important word when it comes to wealth accumulation. Because as you mentioned, you can accumulate wealth in many different ways, legitimate and illegitimate. But we're speaking about the legitimate way here now, is that way you see you as an individual. And this is where you also set the example for your children. I'm sure many of you realize that certain things you see, the certain things that you do in life as discipline, your children automatically start to follow. They see you sticking up, as I mentioned, just to mention what Shankaracharya ji, if you have 99 cents, you have a dollar. That impacted on your mind. That is not like you needed the cent, but it's the discipline we speak about, of respect for money, of non-wastage, etc. This is what is important. And in order for us to really develop financially in a legitimate way, this is a very, very important aspect of discipline and Anushasan. But, if you understand, it's the most difficult thing to practice. But it's easier to do something illegitimate than illegitimate. Because doing things legitimately will take a longer period of time. But the outcome at the end will always be more successful. It will be a solid foundation. So that's a very, very beautiful word I think that we can use when it comes to our children in terms of to help them elevate themselves, discipline, financial discipline. And obviously that will come with spirituality also. Now the next aspect of life we look at is the Grihasti Vamprasth stage. And this is a very, very important stage in my opinion. That Vamprasth, as they say, the detachment stage. And when I say detachment, it really means you're leaving everything and you're going. It simply means that you're starting to detach yourself from whatever you have accumulated from a materialistic point of view. And as we say in local parlance, you start to hand over. You start to put things in place. You make up your will, you make up your deed, you make up all those things. And sometimes when you do your satsang and you talk about Vamprasth and you make this point, the first thing people say, Baba, we're going to there. I say, no, you prevent people from dying. Because this is what was one of the important aspects of Sanatana Dharma. This is why Sanatana Dharma is so diverse. It gives you every single aspect, covering every corners of the square, as we say. So this Vamprasth stage of life is that after you accumulated from Grihasti, you work hard, you accumulate, you put things in place for your children, etc. Now, another important part is to put in things in place financially from assets point of view, so that whenever see that time do come, as Panagan mentioned, it could then maybe Jana, hey, one day all of us have to go, nobody here forever and ever. That whenever that time do come, that we have everything in order. That you have whatever assets is shared up properly amongst your children, names and whatever acquired is properly indicated via your will, via a deed, whatever the case may be. So this VAMPRA stage is a very, very important stage, because what it does, it helps you to sort of release yourself from your duty to a certain extent, because you have worked hard from Brahmacharya into Brahmacharya into Grihastha into Vampras. Now the stage is coming with a transition between yourself and those who are left behind. And this is why all of this, as Panagana mentioned, very, very important from the very first stage. Because if you have not put anything into your children from Brahmacharya, proper education, then Grihastha, proper be thrifty, be resourceful, etc. When that Vampras time come, and you see everything goes into their name, etc., then they not make anything of themselves. They waste everything, as I say, it becomes rajasic. It no longer remains sattvic. So before I pass on to Padishwar, just to mention that this Vampra stage is very, very important. As we say, like in the world, but not of the world. You have interest in everything, but then you start to release yourself easy, drop by drop, as we say, to free yourself of this attachment, to go to the fourth stage, which is sannyas. But from this point of view here, to start to pass over all that you have acquired. Businessmen perform their business, they build up themselves, passes over to the children. Parents work hard, acquire house, land, money, whatever, pass it over. This is what we do. But this Vampra stage is very important, and it ties in with all the other stages. That preparation of the children is most important. So, Pandit.
Thank you, Pandit. And to continue discussing Vampras, so we talk about, starting to give up a little bit in terms of the regular, grihast activities, the activities of a householder, and the strong pursuit of wealth and material possessions and so on, of course, meant to develop the family. This is where you start to relinquish some of those responsibilities. It's not as though, you have given up all your responsibilities. You continue to work. Many of us would not yet be retired. You're still working hard, but you find that certain changes will take place in your life. You perhaps maybe volunteering your time more in the temple, right? Because your children by now may have been, a little bit older, and they themselves may complete their education and actually start working too. But I want to also make the point, as we talk about the Vanpra stage, two things I want to say. One is about seva, selfless service. You would have heard the term Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. Serving mankind, serving humanity, you serve the Lord. So many of our people, you get to that age where you're in this particular ashram, the third ashram, your children may be quite accomplished, earning quite well. You yourself still working hard, and you still, pushing yourself, because this is what you know to do. Give a little bit of your time. And I'm asking if it seems selfish. Yes, you can think so, but give a little time back to the temple, to Swaha, the organization, to some community body that does wonderful work, social work, religious work. That's one. So seva is important. There's an organization called Seva, which actually we know well, that we work together with from time to time. I'm talking about the word seva, giving, doing, and giving a little bit of your time and your abilities to help others. Now, very importantly, also, Panditji mentioned Pandit Umadutt, and he is quite versed, he would deal with this, being involved in financial matters and insurance in particular. We have to put things in place. And for many of our ancestors, I shouldn't say ancestors, many of our elders and we ourselves, sometimes it's hard to let go, hard to give up some of the things that you hold dear. So you work hard to build a house, to purchase land, property, vehicle, and so on, and you hold on to it as long as you feel that you need to hold on to it before you give up. But I want you to think about a few things. So many, you may have children, whereas, 2 children, 3, 10 children, whatever, right? If you have one child, let me put it this way, it may not be a problem. All of your wealth may be left for that one child. You have 2, 3, 4 children, and in front of you, they are quarreling, they're arguing, fighting each other every day, or they quite often can't get along. Do you think after you are gone, they're going to get along? They're going to continue to fight. and pull the family further and further apart, or push each other further and further apart. We have seen, as Hindus, as Pandits, we see it all the time. Families divided, and it is something that may almost be taboo. You wonder why are pundits talking about this, but each of the pundits here on the panel and all the Swaha pundits, and I'm sure every pundit in Trinidad, at some point some chelas come and say, Baba, I don't know what to do, children doing so and so. Talk to them, because they're fighting with each other. They want this little bit, they want to put the parents out of the house too. So these are realities that as Hindus and as pundits we cannot hide from. And every Hindu, as pundits, we have to be responsible to, and we are telling you, put your house in order. Make sure your house is put in order, and you do the proper will. And I'm just using the loose term will, whatever other legal documents have to be prepared, so that things are equitably and fairly distributed afterwards is extremely important. Because do not, I will say to maybe some of our elder brothers and sisters, or bhais and behin looking on, right, or DDs looking on, don't feel that the Pandit is saying that you have to give away everything now. As Pandit Umadutt was saying, not that we think you're going to die now, right away, but it is coming, it's inevitable for all of us. Put things in place, do not shy away from it. And it is not admitting that you're giving up, or admitting that you can't carry on. It is showing how good you are, how great you are, and do it now before it is too late. And so that way you have direct control over who gets what, and how your resources that you work your whole life for, that you may have inherited also, that is distributed properly. And then when you do go peacefully, you don't have to worry about anything. Your Atma goes on, knowing that definitely the family is well taken care of. So listen to Umadutt's advice, and listen to also what I'm saying. Ensure that you do the proper, find a good lawyer. We had a lawyer on the program. There are many lawyers within Swaha. You can call the Swaha office. We could give you many numbers if you need to. And prepare the documents for your welfare. We're talking about the Van Press stage. Sannyas comes after. But
no, but Ishwar, as you were mentioning there, this is, if we're not trying to put down anybody, but as a Pandit Gyandeo is here, myself, you, many times, as you already mentioned, when you go to the funerals, then you see the real action, right? And I look at it from this point of view. You work so hard, you accumulate so much, you put your blood into water, night and day, you work, and then at the end of the day, when you die and leave, you leave everything in Karamandal, you see upside down, then you have basically done no justice to your life. That's basically what you have done, because you have not put anything in place materially to prevent, or I would say, to prevent destruction in the family, disintegration in the home. And this is one of the duties of a Hindu, right? That we are supposed to, apart from working hard, ensure that our family is well taken care of as we proceed. And this is what we have grown up, learning this from our father, learning this from Shankaracharya ji, looking at some of our uncles, and so many others that we would learn from as young individuals growing up. They always mention to you that as you go through life, you accumulate, and then by example also. We look at the Shankaracharya example, look at so many of the senior Pandits examples, right? They didn't have to say it to us, but it was done. That when you see, you put things in place, as Pandit Ishwar already mentioned, you prevent any destruction of the family, and the family continues, because sometimes after death, the whole family mash up. But when things are in place, everything is in order, everybody get what they have to do, that unity remain, that togetherness remain. Because why? Everything is distributed as it's supposed to. And that family unity, which is the foundation of society, is not disintegrated, it remains. Gyandeo?
I just want to mention the point that Ishwar made, that before you reach that stage, you call a lawyer and get the things done. Because if you don't do it, afterwards, all your property, or most of it, will go to lawyer fees among the children fighting. Fighting for property, fighting for money, fighting for house, fighting for land. Put it in place. I have a lawyer, we have lawyers in Swaha. One told me that, he said, when you go in the court, the majority of people are our people who are fighting in court. Mother fighting son, son fighting brother, brother fighting father for property. All because of greed, or because he did not see it necessary to get a lawyer and put things in place. Putting things in place doesn't mean you're giving up. And the legal aspect of it is, if you make something, you can change it. If I say I want to give my son this, before you die, you can change that. these are realities of legal systems. Consult a lawyer, getting in place. So I'll just conclude my part and pass on to Ishwar and Umadutt to conclude their part. We talk about developing wealth. He said, get wealth, but don't let the wealth control you. You control your wealth. When you have wealth, make sure you take care of it. Make sure it's for the benefit of your offspring. And Hinduism has no rules or regulation. Some people give 10% to this one, 10% to that one. In fact, Hinduism doesn't say that. You don't have puja, what are you going to fall offer? Use your conscience and give to the temple. Give to the children's home. Give to those destitute persons who deserve help. So Hinduism doesn't dictate how much you give. Give where it is needed. And we are saying education is important. Make sure that each one of us educate our children, educate ourselves. And finally, the point that is emphasized, overarching everything else, is anushasana, or you say discipline. If you have discipline, we're going through in every area of life. So have discipline. And you must have discipline to wear a mask or to hold your mask. That is your choice. It is very strange. WHO is saying we recommend masks. Government says take out masks. But when that time for cremation, WHO says cremation is good, no problem. But government is saying no cremation. This politics is really something else, you know. Who the fool and which science they're following? According to one person, they fall in high science, not real science. So I'll pass on to Ishwar, and he'll conclude. Or pass on to Ishwar Isise. But Ishwar Maharaj.
Thank you, Gyandeo. So we were talking about wealth. We have been talking about wealth, which one of the terms we use, earth. But at the same time, we have been discussing, of course, the stages, the 4 stages. We got up to the Vanprastha stage. We may not be able to reach sannyas today. We are about to conclude. But I want to, tie everything together in this way. Arth, Dharma, Kam, Moksha. The end goal, of course, liberation, which we all want. This is what we want for ourselves and for our loved ones. Everything must tie in together. So the earth that we are working hard to achieve and to save, all that we want to accomplish must be done in a dharmic way, in accordance with the teachings of Sanatan Dharma. The calm, legitimate, pleasures that we're entitled to, it is tied in with that too. So as you reach to this 3rd stage, the sannyas stage, the Vanprastha stage, we start to give up a little bit of, the pursuit of wealth, yes, and also, our outlook changes, our desires may change also, but everything is in accordance with these stages in life, and also this goal, going from one to the next to achieve eventual moksha liberation. And I know you're intelligent people have been listening, you're followers of Swaha, and also members who love the Hindu perspective. So we do hope that you'll continue to join us in the weeks ahead as we continue this discussion. I'll hand over to Umadutt for any final comments, and then he will close off. Sitaram, everyone.
Time is already gone, so we'll recite our final prayer because it's about a minute to go. So we recite our prayer, and all I will say is that, as Padre Ishwar mentioned, it's a journey from one point to the next, and as we go along with the program, we can discuss a bit more. So as we wrap up, let's clasp our hands, close our eyes as we recite our prayer, so that Divine Mother Lakshmi, as she show her blessing upon us. Om Siddhi Buddhi Prade Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantra Murte Sada Devi Mahalakshmi Namostate Om Asado Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Bole Sri Lakshmi Mata Ki Jai. Bole Sri Swaha Mata Ki Jai. Sitaram.